Hey guys, we're in Ezekiel today, 23 through 24 today. There we go. And we are going to be looking at a couple things that God gives Ezekiel again. And so one of them is these two daughters. So it's one mother, which was like the overarching Israel, okay? And then two daughters that came from that, which is Samaria, the capital, which is representing the 10 tribes of Israel, and that's the Ohala, and then the other daughter, and that's the older one because she has more power. She's further along. She's the bigger chunk of the Israelites, and then you have Ohalaba, maybe, I don't know. I'm so bad at these names. So are you. Don't worry about it. I'm just as bad. You don't need to be able to completely pronunciate these Hebrew names to be able to study the Bible. God does not judge us on that. Thank goodness. And this sister represents Jerusalem and Judah. So just two bits of that. And so it goes through, and sorry, the oldest one, it said the Hebrew word for that is her tent, where the younger one, that one's meaning my tent is in her. So it's representing, like I said, Jerusalem and Judah inside of Israel. So I just think that was interesting, thinking of it as the Hebrew translation of her tent versus my tent. So where he established himself in Jerusalem is kind of what he's establishing here in this first paragraph. And then it goes through how the one made a whore of herself, going after every single thing that looked good. And then sadly, the sister saw all of this and still went that way, rather than seeing it and learning from it. And I think about the teaching moments I always have with my kids too, of well, you saw your sibling did this. Why would you not choose to do it different? You saw it didn't work out for them. You saw that it wasn't good. You also saw that it was hurtful when they did that to you, that it was hurtful. So why would you go and do it to a younger sibling? I have this conversation all the time. And that's what we see play out here in a whole nation picture, right? Versus little kids. A whole nation picture of the sister goes out who has much more and goes after all of these, and it's and it shows that it is not prosperous to go that way, that it was actually harmful to them. And you saw the continual downward spiral Israel was constantly making. Judah watched that. Jerusalem watched that. And yet, even though they had these kings that would kind of reset and restart, right? Remember, we saw a roller coaster with the tribe of Judah, where it wasn't just this downward, but it's you would have it downward, and then a king would come and say, nope, we got to turn this back around. And then they would become another king, and it'd go down. And it was this roller coaster. And it's I've given you all these opportunities, and you're seeing what's happened to your other people, Israel, the other 10 tribes. And yet you're still dipping, and so you're still kind of falling into those traps, which is something that God's addressing here. And then we have in verse 31, it tells them it tells Judah, you looked at Samaria, they would look at Samaria with disgust. Jews did, the people from Jerusalem and Judah would look at the people from Samaria with disgust. And we see that a ton in Jesus's time too, that didn't change. They looked down on them because they were the place where the temple was. And so they just felt we have the temple and we are in the chosen city and we are just elevated. We are above you. And so when God says here that you're the same as them and actually worse, that had to be to them this shock of whoa, God, we're the ones you chose. We're where we live, where you had the temple. And that kind of goes into the next chapter when he's talking about this pot. They had this pot, he goes into, and it's you set a pot and put water in it and put the choice meats in it. And then he was representing, that's what they thought. They thought all their priests and stuff had this high statutes, and they would in this pot protected, when really they were boiling. And they were falling, and the tarnish, the rust that was on that pot, even if you boil it, it doesn't go away. And so going back into this portion here, he's calling them out on that of hey, you actually have gone worse than that. And in chapter 23, 37 through 39, it goes into that they would sacrifice their children to an idol, and then go right back over, go the same day, go over to God's sanctuary and offer to him. which is interesting because he absolutely hated what those things were doing and representing. He hated idols, but most of all, he hated child sacrifice. He constantly calls it's abominable, it's disgusting, it's horrible. Life is of the highest value to me. Don't you see? I'm constantly live. I breathe the breath of life. I am life. I'm the way, the truth, the life, right? And yet, you're going and sacrificing a life, literally killing the child I gave you, and then coming to me the next day. And one little thing that I'm going to pause here before I get into my point in that is the idol worshiping. It said the name of the god. It was Moask or I'm trying to find it real quick, but if I can't find it, you'll read it when you go through. But it states the god and what that god. So I ended up looking up what that god was because I wanted to understand what did that mean? Did that mean they just burned their kids at the stake like they did with witches, or is it like what does that mean? I don't really know why I was curious, because I shouldn't be, because my stomach can't handle that. I'm very sensitive. My spirit's very sensitive. So when you get into that darkness, it just is this gut-wrenching feeling for me, and I want to throw up, and I won't be able to stop thinking about it, and I'll just be mourning, and just so my mind will just be so sad for it. But I went into it. And so just to give you guys an understanding of it, it was a bull statue that they would light on fire till it was bright and glowing red, because it was on fire, and it had its outstretched hands, and it would place their babies, their children, right into its hands. So this scorching hot, and it'd just be this slow, horrible death. Could you even imagine, think of that. So this is the state they were in when God steps in. He's because think of that, mentally, that is a mental illness. For you to get so hard-hearted and so far in your mind that you can listen to the screams of your child, or of any child, but especially your child, and feel nothing other than, oh, good, I hope I have, I want good crops this year, so this is what I'm going to do. Hopefully that worked. I mean, could you imagine, mentally, you at that point are so far gone if you are so emotionally detached. And this is where God's hey, you who aren't even blushing are gone. There's no coming back from that. You have to be so mentally brainwashed to be okay with putting your child, listening to the screams of your child and saying, offer it up. You have to be so mentally not there. You are mentally, there is no coming back. And so for you, sword, famine, pestilence, it's done. But for those who it's still blush, for those who hear it and just ache, I see you. And you will be a remnant. I'll save you, because you still have a moldable heart. You're not too far gone. And so realize that because so often we can read this part of the Old Testament of God's judgment and pin him wrong and say man, he says he's slow to anger, but look at him. He's just wiping out these people they don't even matter if they don't do it the way he wants. Or some people, I've heard people say well, he's a very contradictory God, because he just wants it to be about him and not anybody else, where it's why can't you have multiple? Why can't you, why do you just have to have one? Don't you think that's kind of selfish of your God to feel that way? And I've heard that argument before. And this is where it's well, you've heard this wrong, because I know you haven't read this. So you've heard it wrong, because that's not what's happening here. He's why in the world would you chase after a God or these other gods who desire your most precious things to get yourself to flourish, to get abundance, to give them these things to sacrifice so you can go do what you want, sacrifice to have abundance, rather than coming to me, that you have to bring me nothing, but walk in a moral lifestyle and you will have abundance. Why? Why would you choose that, right? And I think of that all the time for today with all the different religions that there are, and some still in a way do child sacrifice of this brainwashing. You see overseas when we were, all those documentaries on when all that terrorist of 9/11 was happening, how they literally are sacrificing their children. They think it's a gift to give. It's a good thing to give to then your kid to sacrifice to kill off the rest of the people of the world, because you want to rule the world. You want your nationality to rule the world, and it's not cleansed until everyone else is out. So it doesn't even matter if you turn to their faith. Bottom line, you are to sacrifice so that way the whole world can be that type of nation. And so like this still exists today. And in the smallest form, even I can see it as like, oh, I'm not going to get into, I'm going too far into this because I'm getting too long on this, but you hear what I'm saying, right? You hear what I'm saying. And it's just like mind boggling to me and gut wrenching to me. And now I'm just like, thinking on just like the obsession and mental illness that someone would have to be so detached from their child. And it is too far gone. God continually tried. We saw he pursued over and over, like, hey, you don't have to do this child sacrifice. Actually, I really love your children. So if you could just not kill them and trust me, and I will make sure things go right. And they were like, we want to do both. And so jumping back now into the lesson that I can pull from this today for us to take personally is what things are we doing that are the same, that it's not so different today, that people who go out, right, and get unbelievably obliterated and drunk and go to church the next day, or are having affairs on their wives, or are struggling with pornography and doing those things in the bedroom and then coming to church that next hour, right, where we're doing sinful things, but then like going into the sanctuary or and presenting ourselves as okay. And it's not. Our lifestyle is what he's looking for. Our heart is what he's looking for. A life of Christianity, not a church attendance, and not a, well, here's what I'm doing to get what I need from God, and then here's what I'm doing to please the world. It can't coexist. And the Bible is completely in agreement on this through and through. It's consistent, guys. It's consistent that it's about a lifestyle of it, that it's a way of life. It's a way of doing things which are moral. So it's for everyone else's good. And in turn, it will also be good for you. It's moral and has integrity. Okay, is what we're talking about here. So really not much at cost other than being a good human, which is so funny that like people buck that, And it's that and not both. You can't walk in both, because then you're just a hypocrite, right? Because that's what he's addressing here. So living out what you're preaching, or living out fully the way of Christianity. And that's probably where a lot of it gets muddied, is there's so much Christianity where they're not doing that. And so then people are saying, well, wait, you're Christian, yet you're hating on us, yet you're being nasty to us, yet you're XYZ. And it's like, well, one, we don't claim to be perfect, but also is our lifestyle showing that we are desiring to look more and more like Christ each day. And that's in our actions, that's in our words, that's in our mindset too, of this humbleness that we have, and desire to not cast judgment on someone else, but to bring them in to that, to say like, I hear you, and I know that you think that's fun and that's good and you like doing that, but what if I told you there's more, where it's not this condemnation, but this pull in. That's what we should be doing, right? And that's what Jesus gave us as an example. And then lastly here, in chapter 24, Ezekiel, this horrible thing happens here in verse 18, that like I wrestled with the first few times that I read this, like, man, where is this good? But Ezekiel's wife will die suddenly, and he is to not publicly mourn, but to carry on. So it says that it was the apple of his eye. It says, where's that one line? That God says how she's like what his eyes, like his greatest joy pretty much is his wife. I can't find it again. So when you'll read it, you'll find it and you'll be like, oh, that's what Anna was talking about. But that she was just this pride, like he loved her. So it wasn't out of a lack of love. It states clearly that she was just like that. He loved her. She was everything to him, And God says she's going to suddenly die, and I don't want you to publicly mourn her, not in public. I want you to just carry on and move forward. And man, I was like, wow, like that is so hard, right? Like, how does someone even do that? And I'm like, well, one, the beauty you can see in here is God preparing him mentally now, right? Of like, he doesn't just like do it. He's like, hey, this is going to happen. So I'm letting you know this is going to happen. So he mentally can prepare himself and his heart for this task that God's calling him into. He's like, it's going to be hard, right? And so I'm just going to let you know. And then also what dedication Ezekiel had, both like physically and mentally, the strength it had to take to say, like, I know I'm not forever apart from her. I'm heaven bound to her. And I'm going to obey God, knowing and trusting that he's going to use it for good. And that's another thing that I wrote in here today, was how God can use our deepest personal pain as a testimony, which is a beautiful thing. Following God can come at a high cost, but God's purpose is always bigger than our understanding. Like if he's allowed it to happen or caused it to happen, we have to know that he has good planned. And so what is that good, Lord? I've told you guys this before. Seek it. Ask him. Ask him, what was your good purpose in this thing that I had to suffer through? Where's the testimony in this personal pain that I'm still walking in, right? Like it doesn't just go away, right? When you're sexually abused, it doesn't just go away. When you had this drug addiction, when you have parents who have harmed you and abused you, it doesn't just go away, that pain. When you lose a child, it doesn't just go away. And people say this all the time. They're like, no, you just learn to live with that pain. You don't actually overcome it. You learn to live with it. And my goal in all areas of my painful past is to say, okay, I agree with that. You don't get over the pain, you live with it. But how can I actually, instead of just living with it and learn how to walk in a new brokenness, walk with the scar, how do I actually flip the script on Satan? How do I actually say, okay, what you've done, what human evil, what you've enticed people into doing to me, or what you have caused, because Satan is death, Satan is sin, that's not God, right? And how, like what you meant for evil, how do I turn that to good? And that's what my goal is with all things that he tries to turn evil. Like how can you take it and flip it on its head and make it where it actually glorifies God? Because that's what he's trying to always do, right? The opposite. Take what God makes for good and make it evil, right? Sex, let's make it evil. Right? Holidays, let's make it evil. Christmas, the very birthday of Christ. Let's try to make it evil, try to make it about other things, right? And I'm not saying let's go against all of that, because I know some people just are like, well, that's no good, and so we're just done with it. I'm instead like, okay, let me take this very thing and flip the script. Let me show that it is good. Let me rewrite the exact thing the world's doing. So not taking my kids out of the world, but let's live in the world and see God's glory and praise him with the very things the devil was trying to make evil, right? And so the same thing here with personal pain, and our personal can turn into these personal testimonies of the freedom that God gives, of him rewriting script, right? And I shared with you guys maybe a few months ago of how God's finally gotten me to a space of understanding when I got raped at 18, that pain, that, like I said, that scar that you're walking with, that you don't ever get over, that you like. He got me over it because he showed me, like, where was his hand? Where was he good? What is the purpose that he's using this for? And he's flipped it and shown me good, to where now I can speak about it without crying. I just shared it with you and I have no sadness, because I'm like, this is a testimony of the healing God can do. Like, this is available. Like, I know now, I've walked it. I can prove it. That there is a way to not only have this scar and like have God like heal it, but to like make it completely new with scars not even there. Where it's like, yeah, that didn't go away. That still happened. That still happened. But there's no fear. There's no worry. There's no talking about it. There's no hearing about it triggers a fear in me, an anxiety in me, because I've walked through that. And so it just like, oh, every time I hear it, like that's gone. To us. And the testimony that I want to push out is that it is available, because I think that's what, bottom line, all the things God's having me walk through is for me to just continually share that there's more of God you can have, to shed light on the things he is offering that's available to us that we don't realize, because our churches often speak just across the board. Here's the words on the page, but there's depth we can get to. There's depth. There's more of God that's available to us when we're studying this, that there truly is more, that as you dive into a relationship with him, reading your scripture, knowing him better, and then you get on these prayer walks to like hear him and start moving and like, wow, like the Holy Spirit wake actually has an opinion and I can walk in this. And it's kind of scary. Don't get me wrong. Super scary at first. It takes a lot of like, it's a muscle. You got to exercise it because it's really scary. It calls you out of your box, right? It calls you pretty deep. But when you're going in that, the fruit that comes from it far outweighs staying stuck, far outweighs staying where you were and saying like, yeah, but do I really want to pray about this? I mean, God will answer then. And do I really want that answer? Guys, the answer is yes, 1,000 times yes, because it's always better than ours, no matter what that looks like. And Ezekiel proves that here, that even his most precious thing, his faith was so deep, knowing that God was bigger, that the testimony would be a light to push out, and that he has this promised eternity with her. Like, he's got more. It's not just about this earth. It's having eyes for eternity, and that's what we're supposed to have. Okay, that's what I have for you guys today. And we'll talk to you guys tomorrow.